Good morning, Jolanda. I'm just waiting a minute or two. I decided to start the Good Morning Gail, start a little bit early this morning, just a little bit. I found out on YouTube um, I can clip the video if I want to, and it just feels better to come on early and kind of be in the space of what I'm present to and what's occurring. I'm not going to take the time to tell the whole dream I had this morning, but I was trying to figure out how to reference it. I was trying to figure out how to present it in a way that transmitted the message that was so clearly present through the dream. But kind of the shortness of it is I've been, for the past week, almost every night, I've dreamed of being with Saima. Not in a way that people normally think about that. I have a very specific way that I dream her, very specific. It's like when I was with her in Sawababa, when we were in Varanasi, India. Uh, the only way I know how to talk about it is I was sort of their pet for the day. I traveled with them that day, and it was fun. It was really like being a pet. It's the best way I can explain it, and but a fun pet. I mean, a pet having fun. So Ma took me to all these places to see and to be with rural villagers. It was beautiful, um, and took me to meet um, where they made sugar, this brown sugar, and stuffed some in my mouth, and it was just kind of a fun kid with the parents kind of time. So when I dream about her, it's a similar experience. It's not so much kid with the parents. It's more I'm visiting. Like, I'm not an ashramite and I'm not doing seva. I'm kind of visiting. I'm like a guest, but I'm sort of like a pet guest in my dreams. Not that she's basically abused me that way. That's up to her. I don't know what she does, but it's a very they're very satisfying dreams. And I hang out. I hang out in her ashrams and in my dreams. I hang out wherever she happens to be in dream time, and it's lovely. But this particular dream, I've pretty much had one every morning, every late night, I guess you call it, for about a week now. And before that, I was having all sorts of nightmares, and I knew I was going through some kind of psychic uh, pass through, and that my subconscious was purging, I guess you would say. And it doesn't make it any easier, frankly, but it's good to know that you're not. It's good to be in touch with your own being, because then you don't interpret things as you don't misconstrue things as easily as you do when you're not in touch with yourself. You sort of have an idea about the principles of life and the way life works, the way the vibration of life works. And but at the latter part of the dream, Ann Turl, who's on the call today, was she cooks beautifully and on her own, as well as for her Airbnb guests, and or her when they have retreats there at her place, Ballymac, hers and Roberts. And so at the very end of the dream, I didn't know it was the end, but at the very end of the dream, I have to tell the other part too. I was in this gigantic kitchen where she was showing the Seva group how Seva means assistance in courses and things, or helping Ma around her ashram and things. But she was helping them bake cookies. And so she was taller than usual, or I was shorter than usual. I'm not sure which. And she had a big apron on, and it was covered with flour. And I just walked up to her and put my head on her chest and curled around her, just for a bit of sanctuary, just for a bit of sacred space and of rest and courage. And lately I've been having to build my strength, stamina, capacity around rest and courage to move through some things that I'm confronting. And what out of that, what happened was I actually called her. But before I go into that, the other fun thing is, some of you know that for me, when I was young, this is 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 4, but 5, 6, 7, 8 for sure. I had a Tomsi. He was about 1.5 feet tall. I thought he was a fairy, but now I would assume, given the definitions, he was probably a fae. And he used to ride on my shoulder. And I was so happy nobody could see him but me and Muffet, my cat, could see him. It took a while for them to get along, sort of like Kevin the dog and Noah the cat, and in our present abode. And but I didn't realize in the dream there was this Irish kind of guy. And I suddenly realized he was Tomsi. He was just a full-grown human-looking person. And the minute I realized it was Tomsi, I laughed, and he winked at me. And you know, in the dream time, you get to take, dream time takes, what do you call it? Not leverage, license, takes license in our dream time. And so anyway, I called Anne, and yesterday I'd called Kaya, or Kaya and I had gone on a Zoom because of something she was reading, which I probably should post here after I get off the call. I'd like to start posting things on WhatsApp here, because there's some really rich things that are happening on this thread we have, and maybe if we're lucky, some people will post things here to share with the general public, or with the public, and not general. But it was so amazing yesterday and today, because my own strength, stamina, capacity for courage has been challenged lately. And yesterday, Kaya had written something, or recorded something, and it was just what I needed to restore my sense of even leverage, leverage and leverage for moving forward. And leverage is a really good word too, but we're not doing leverage today. We're doing preference and choice, two of my favorite words. But talking to Anne, her conversation and what she had to share was just perfect. It was just what I needed. It was just what I needed to hear to be in a sacred space for rest and courage. And I want to really highlight that in this call, because this is a field phenomenon. When I put this address on Facebook, I put it on Facebook as a place, a sacred space for rest and courage. That's really the truth of what I did. I monitor what people post. I've been very happy with what people post, because it's a way to reach out and touch each other and be there for each other through being present to things that each of us is present to, and then forwarding them on to others, because we can tell in what we've been present to, it has a certain ability for us to relax and to feel in a sacred space again, and perhaps if we're in need of courage, that we have more courage. And when I did the prophetics this year, it was so clear to me, and I know it's not languageable yet in the way that I experienced it, but it was so clear to me that the human emotional palette is going to go through a lot this year. And so that necessity, that beauty, not psychiatric, not I don't know what that stuff is that I'm trying to say, not that. Not oh you poor thing, or not uh oh you're going to be okay, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Uh but more a kindness. So in my dream I had called Kea, and I, because in this thing with Dom and Her Falco, who is the source of this group called Dom and Her in Dom and Her Italy, Falco would give Piavro these messages of go here at a very specific time and you'll find and see what you, and I'll leave something for you after he's dead. He did this. And or you'll find something, and he used to do this all the time. And so in this part of the dream I was saying to Kea, in that same vein, I was saying, I need you to see if you can find us a big wooden plaque, almost like the carved out words that say kindness with a little fairy wrapped around it in green. And so that was part of the dream too. And then Tomsy, and then calling Anne, who lives in Ballymac, which is completely elemental, and everything lives there. All the primordial forces, and fire, water, metal, air, earth, and I cannot on the air explain what she was watching, the rabbit stew, and she and Robert watching the rabbit stew outside the glass. But let's just say that they were knocking each other off, the female, for a very specific reason. So this kind of remembering what life is, remembering the vitality of life, these sweet moments of connection, these precious moments of oneness that I often think a lot of the words we use around enlightenment and awakening are sort of a cross between pablum and narcotic drug to just have you be numb. But actually the living of life isn't like that. The living of life is full with all sorts of delicacies of feeling and emotion, and stages of concern and worry to joy and freedom. It's a huge, to be a human being is to live in a huge emotional palette of connection to life. And I know when I was in my 20s, because I'm a cellular empath, it was really important to me that I developed a healthy emotional palette, that I was capable of sadness, I was capable of joy, I was capable of feeling attraction, I was capable of feeling love, I was capable of being angry. I was healthy. I needed to be emotionally healthy, because as a cellular empath, or an empath of any kind, you can really get thrown by feeling the surge of the power of the emotions come through your body. And then it comes all tied into this psychotic mental triggers that we go through about woe is me, or oh my God, I'm going to die. Or, I mean, it's just the emotional field for most human beings is a tripwire place that gets you in trouble, frankly. But I knew early on I needed to be able to have a sustainable emotional field that I wasn't thrown by, and that I could use my emotional field as an access to being alive, as the door to being fully awake and fully alive. And it's I can't stress enough how great it is to develop the beauty of your emotional palette, because palette is like a painting palette where you have all different colors, and you mix them and you match them, and you make your painting called your life colorful, and it can be intense, it can be lighthearted, it can be dull, but all of it is rich. That's what a healthy emotional palette is, that it's all very, very rich, even fear, even sadness, even worries and concerns. If your emotional palette is healthy, if it's colorful, if it's got its color and isn't triggering too many mental tripwires of you know what they are, what when you get emotional, what words come up, those little programs in your head that don't go down the right tube. But really this year is about developing a healthy emotional palette, the ability to be sad, be glad, be happy, be dull, be stupid, be real B, 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 B. So that's the deal. So so it was just beautiful talking to Anne because I was, I was having a moment of a loss of courage. Yesterday it was the loss of courage being without my dog. Today it was the loss of courage because going to the doctor. I don't like doctors, and I'm worried about what they might say. Now I apologize because I could be triggering everybody on this call, and all those little mental triggers that go through our bodies and our minds and bodies. But it leads me to actually the conversation I want to have tonight. I was today this morning. Sorry, I'm still in other people's time zones. But I want to talk about the two words. I love these two words. I am a, what do you call it? I'm a language, I am language based. I'm a language savant. Though when I live in language, it's like artists live in paint. And so words for me are rich and flavorful. And I'm probably a linguist of the soul. I probably carry in my consciousness a language and how words sound and what they connect to and what they weave into. I probably could be called a soul linguist, and because a psychic reads the mind of the soul. So you could say that my relationship to language and how it sounds and how it feels and what it's capable of leading to actually what makes me a linguist. But I like that. I think I could legitimately say I'm probably a linguist of the soul, and because psychic means being able to read the mind of the soul, so that's not too far-fetched. But I want to talk about these two words because I can demonstrate them in my own challenges right now. And mostly I have a really bad knee, and I don't know, or one of the ones that bothers me the most is my knee is really not holding up well. And if I walk too much, it really, really hurts, like a shin splint that is covering the entire lower part of my leg. And if and every now and then it pops, and I feel like I'm going to fall to the ground. And then I'm still in post-COVID stuff, which for those of you that have had COVID, it's no way to explain to anybody what it's like. But you don't lose the feeling that something's working itself through in your body still, and you can feel death. I can't explain it better than that. You can feel death because you visited it. So in my case, I visited it at the door. And then the death of Lily. So death is something I'm working on. I'm working through right now. And I'm going to use it for this conversation, but you can put in your own blank, fear of future, lack of vitality, whatever yours is, you can put it in the blank. But I was talking to Anne, I realized that in the conversations, particularly yesterday with Kaya and today the conversation with Anne, it was building a preference because I didn't feel the strength of choice. So let's try to do this. So we talk about intentions and affirmations. Just go down that route for a minute. And mostly they're used mentally. Like if I say this enough times, it'll come true. Well, that's actually not how it works, but we won't go into that. But there is a real genuine feeling, and we misconstrue it when people say it. Like when you feel like you don't have choice or you don't have the capacity for choose, like your decision doesn't necessarily have life choose you going that way. Do you understand? I have a friend, her name is Emer. And I was talking to Anne about this. And when she was dying, her body was falling away, as Oracle Girl says, and it was clearly falling away. Everybody around her knew she was dying. But then what is death is the question. So I said to her about 4 or 5 days, I think, before she went into the hospital, I said to her, so I just have a question. Because she wasn't planning on dying. But dying is like a collapsed field of language. What does that mean? First of all, our cells die every day. So what does dying actually mean? And so I said to her, so do you not want to lose the body? Is that what you mean? Like you want to stay in a body here? Or do you mean you don't want to lose touch with yourself and others with or without a body? And I probably said it better than this, but we'll use this for the conversation. And she said, I don't want to die. I don't want to lose consciousness. I don't want to lose being related to this place. This is going to make me cry. Because when you're past the border of right and wrong doing, when you're past the border of good and bad, and I promise you can get past that border. When you're past the border of betrayal, rejection, abandonment, life is so beautiful. It is so exquisite, like that terrible movie that had a bad ending, that you drop to your knees in the face of it and the exquisiteness of it. I was driving back from Sprouts, for those of you overseas, or in Mexico or Canada. It's a grocery store, a really great grocery store. And the Sandia Mountains, where it goes west to east, the road I was on. And it's only about 4 blocks before I turn right to come to where I live. And oh my God, the mountains were unbelievable. They were painted in soft snow where you could still see the rugged browns and blacks. And the sun was hitting it. And it was this odd, almost fog pastel colors coming off the snow. And so I drove the whole length of Lomas Boulevard I was on, which took me a good 20 minutes rather than 2 minutes to turn right, just because just the beauty of them was so, talk about an emotional palette, so feeding my soul. And I could feel my gut just pulsing with joy, and it hurt emotionally also, because I'm confronting not wanting to leave. Please don't make anything up about this. I don't mean I'm dying. I'm confronting not wanting to die. Now, I want to die when I'm ready, and I'm not ready. And nobody ever has this conversation. I'm clear about that. But Emer did, and Emer did it great. So when we figured out that she just didn't want to lose touch with this place, then I lined up. I said, okay, good, we got it. And because I knew it was real. And then shortly after that, my dog Lily, when she died, she just didn't bother to lose touch with me. And so now I'm in this interesting, since I drove for about 3 months, which I think is what wrecked my knee. I had COVID, so I have some real physical weaknesses I'm challenged with. Some of the things that have been happening are just odd, and I need to make sure they're not something more than just odd. But it's not the symptomology, it's more what it's triggered. And it's triggered how much I love it here, and how I promised my dog that I would have a great life without her, because I knew, because I have such emotional fulfillment is very important to me, not neediness. But if you saw you see behind me, but if you see what I'm doing with the house and how I put things together, it's all about Mott. It's beauty, harmony, symmetry, proportion, grace, balance. It's my whole world is Mott. But the aesthetic feeling, emotion of that beingness, not, and also Tantra, the unity of heaven and earth, to have no more separation between life and death. That's my gig. So naturally, I would be working through something right now regarding that, or I could be working through something like that regarding it. But when Ann and I were talking, what became crystal clear is when I'm going to speak for myself first, but then I'm going to speak generally. Is when I feel the weakest is when I feel like I have no choice, that I'm at the effect of my circumstances. I'm at this point, I'm at the effect of my body. When I'm at the effect of money, when I'm at the effect of the world we are finding ourselves in from time to time, when I'm at the effect of my car breaking down, I have an RV, I still can't get repaired. All these things affect us to a point where we feel like we have no choice. So when we say, I feel like I have no choice, I just want to give it a legitimacy, because we do feel like we have no choice, but there's this weird configuration of thought that makes us think that we should be able to choose when we can't. And particularly around death, I sat with a lot of people when they're dying, and I've seen people that want to die that live. I've seen people that want to live that die. And they had no choice. Their body chose. So there are, particularly around the body and particularly around the physical world, the human being has less choice in the physical world than we do in our non-physical world. In other words, we have complete choice with our spirit. We have complete choice with our imaginations. We have complete choice with our sensations and our sensitivity. Now, you may have to work at it. You may have to decide to not hate anymore. And you may have to, work. Like when I was young, I had a pretty brutal upbringing, emotionally very brutal. And imagine waking up in the morning, going to bed at night, your mother doing the list of things that are horrible about you, pretty much 24/7. She was in a lot of emotional pain. So I used to I don't watch them at all anymore, except for a couple, which my children are always embarrassed by, because I laugh so hard I could clear the theater. But like Liar, Liar, for those of you that know that Jim Carrey movie. I laughed so hard my children moved to the back of the theater. But that's an aside. The point is that I had to go watch comedy so I could get a register for fun and laughter and comic relief. I had to go somewhere other than my life to figure out joy and laughter and humor. I went to the movies. Now, and also I'm actually pretty much have a lot of joy and laughter and humor now. I got to use it as my build my emotional palette, because I didn't like feeling the terror and the horror and the I can't think of the other word. I've never really had a word for it, but it was rejection, just rejection of someone thinking I was just terrible, and or not thinking, but making sure I thought I was just terrible, and it went away. The impact of that kind of environment went away. It no longer stuck on me anymore. And that's the beauty of consciously developing an emotional palette. You don't recover from your emotions. We have all of them. It's our palette. It's a matter of making which ones you want the gut, the nervous system to respond to the most effectively. But there are times in our life that we feel we don't have choice. And I want to take away the paradigm of we always have choice, because we do not. We do not always have choice. I promise we do not. We wish we had full choice, and we have some kind of stupid, malevolent theory that we should always be able to choose, but we don't. Not in a physical world. In a physical world, there are a tremendous amount of influences that let us live and let us die and let us be well and let us be sick and let's life be good and let's life be bad. It's a conglomeration of multiple factors, all interested in living. You have billions of bacteria in your body that really would like to have you die so they can eat you. I mean, sorry. We have a cat, Noah, who is taking a dislike to Kevin, the puppy, and is just really clear about that. And those of us in the household are pretty much at the effect of that and managing as best we can this very primordial nature that these two animals have. So far, the puppy is cowed, so that works out pretty well. But the puppy doesn't have choice. Neither does Noah. There are these things that come up in our world that we don't have any choice in. And it's been one of the worst kind of metaphysical, pseudo-metaphysical theories that has dominated the human psyche, is that we do have choice. We do sometimes. And I work in choice. I work with the creation exercises, which builds the capacity for choice. But choice, oh my God, maybe we'll do a whole conversation about choice. This thing might happen. If it happens, we'll do a whole conversation on choice. Because it is possible to have choice. It actually is possible. But we're maturing the restoration of choice within our nature, because there used to be, in fact, even now, with the Tibetan monks, they can, and the Aborigines choose when they choose the day they die. There's tribes in South America that can choose to regrow limbs. It is a relationship between the biological world and the spirit world, the world of energy, the world of vibration, the world of resonance. And we have history that we know people had more choice because they were more in sync with and more related to the powers and forces of creation in which this place dwells. So you can see we have to stop the topic right there, because until we have that capacity, like Masters of the Far East, in those books and in other books, and I actually have a lot of capacity for choice. And that choice is will. Real choice is thy will be done. Real choice is being in the face of horrific circumstances or confusing circumstances, and there is this capacity in a human being, a will, a strength of will to supersede the circumstance, including one's own death. But let's just say we might not quite be there yet. Let's just take that on for now. But that it's possible, which makes it even, and we think of choice as being able to dominate something that we feel willful about, which is very different than my will be done. So for me, I have had, let's say, a lot of lives that were only mission oriented. It wasn't really about my being here. It wasn't really about my enjoying an everyday life. If you ever saw Tommy, the movie, the musical of The Who, he says to the people, he's standing on the pool table, he's a pool wizard, and he says, you all want to be like me, but I want to be like you. He wanted to be normal. I'm not. I have never been normal. And my daughter was watching it when we were in New York. I took her when she was 12 years old to see New York shows. And she pulls the coat of the man next to her, and she says, that's my mommy. And it's true. So my whole palette has been get my job done and get out of here. And this time I don't want to. But I have a historic, almost eternal memory of that's been my MO, my modus operandi for thousands and thousands of years. Only this time I don't want to. So you could say that I am between palettes of existence. But sorry, I'm between two different kinds of existence: personal joy and fun, and hanging out for no particular reason, no mission, just because I love it here, delightedly so. And a long memory history of only coming here to make sure that humanity move forward effectively in the path of its true nature. So they're conflicting right now. These two modus operandi are. So I'm working on developing the strength of the second choice, which is quality of life for another 20 plus years. So I'm working on that in the face of all of you have this. All of you can listen to your mindsets. All of you know which mindsets you're at the effect of. All of you know what emotions you're at the effect of. And consciousness is about consciously going to work and developing emotions you prefer, developing choices you prefer, which brings us to preference. So I want to really speak about preference. Preference is, for me, the most beautiful alchemy of the human spirit. It's married to choice. It's like it's like the guardian that stands beside the warrior, so that when the warrior gets weak, the guardian can guard the warrior. Preference is magic. Preference is yummy. It's exquisite. It's got a taste. It's got a it flutters your spirit. It brings truth of what you choose forward. It, even in its weakest state, it's the guardian of choice. It's the guardian that guards the temple of choice until you can enter it. It's a beautiful word. And why it's so beautiful is that you have a consciousness. You have an amazing palette of existence that is your consciousness. I know for those of you that have done an engagement with me, what I do is I walk out into the palette, into your landscape of consciousness. I'm walking into your consciousness. I'm looking around. I'm seeing how it's going. I'm seeing where you have strengths and weaknesses, and I build. My preference is to build your weaknesses to strengths, build your unclarities to clarity, build your confusions to your inability to choose. It's just the way our system works. It's not rocket science. It's the way we work. So, and I notice when I start down this road with people, there's all this, what I call booby traps. Let me say what I mean. So if I said to somebody, which I have, I'm concerned I'm going to die, they'll say, oh, no, you're not going to die. So they don't listen to my concern. They jump to this, oh, no, we have full choice. Oh, no, you can make a decision and have this not happen. And we got to stop it. We really got to stop it. Because it's like the only way we could do that is if we're independent of the entire universe. If we're not part of the universe. If we had complete domination, which we're trained to think, over all life. And that's not the truth. But I'm very clear my dog does not want me to join her. Does not want me to lose my body to join her. And my beautiful, forever, I read my first reading was him when he was 9 years old, and now he's in his late 40s. Just chewed me out about even thinking about dying. So clearly he doesn't want me to die. So I can develop a preference for not dying right now. I'd love to have the ability and preference to never die. I'm not quite sure I'm at that scale of consciousness, but it's not like I do in entertainment. I entertain a lot. I would prefer human beings entertain more than they entertain about their own thinking and their own consciousness, because I've seen things happen that are nothing short of miraculous almost every day. And it's because I stay at the border of preference. I prefer heaven over hell. I prefer vitality over weakness. I prefer right now to stay alive instead of die. I prefer to continue to feel the presence of my dog and to develop the ability to feel her presence without feeling death. I have a list of preferences that are as long as what it would take to go around the world. And I'm recommending preference. I want you to just say the word internally to yourself, and I want you to feel what happens. And if you would write it on the comment page, because preference has a magical quality to it. You know, I prefer joy over sadness. I prefer a world of peace. You know, I prefer having someone fix my RV. But just feel it. Feel the word inside of you. Because it's the navigator between realities of separation and realities of unity. It's the navigator of being born into a world where we had to literally be weak to exist here. To exist in this structure of reality, we had to be weak. We had to be compliant. We had to adapt. We had to be toxic. I mean, it was a real crapshoot when we came in. But the realities of unity we remember were realities where we had say. I am the word, and where I am the word is. It's just that simple. But in the gap is preference, our angel preference. Our angel preference. So just think for a minute. You know, just think about preference. It's because it's a power. It's an alchemy. You know, I was thinking about it because the other day, C and I talked about I might need to get crutches. So I figured out, because I was concerned if I fell, she wouldn't be able to get me up. It's better now, but at the time, I prefer not to have crutches, but I preferred crutches over a walker. And now I seem to be on the other side of that. I just have to figure out what's wrong that makes it keep hurting so bad when I walk. But the point is, listen to yourself say it, because we're in a dual world. This is the most critical thing I can ever say to people. We're in a dual world. Everything has a place. We keep trying to not give something a place. Like if we don't give it a place, it won't exist, but it does exist. We have death. We have illness. We have lots. Everything has a place here. But you have a preference over what you want in your place, in your loca. You have a preference. And that presence is heard. That preference is heard. And it's heard by our will. And our will is thy will. That's a real true statement. You know, we talk like thy will, like the, white bearded guy up in the sky. But thy will is the greater systems of which we are a part. Our will is a part of a will that is the cosmological planetary juice of creation. And preference builds will. And by the way, I was reading through, you can say I prefer da-da, or you can even say I prefer it over something else. Because remember Mott? Mott is about balance. And if you're in a place where the container is, what is that, half empty or half full, if you can say I prefer full over empty, see what happens? I prefer full over empty. It's totally legit. It's the greatest dualistic statement you can ever make, because you're readjusting this what's the word? Proportion. You're generating proportion, your symmetry, balance, harmony. And we have this thing-based world. It's the last piece I want to say. And if you all want to take time to ask questions or go ahead. I'll if you bounce up enough, I think I can see them as you come on, and I can ask somebody. And pretty soon I may get to talk to her directly. We'll see how that goes. But the point is that as long as we're in a dual world, we'll have everything available to us. But in our landscape of consciousness, we can build preferences. Do you have a computer? You know, the thing up on the side, you drop it down, it says preferences. We have preferences too. And those preferences get on the side of bringing something into harmony, balance, symmetry, and proportion that isn't available without preference. That's all I want to say. It is, and we're in an in-between world right now. We do not have our strength, stamina, capacity back for the original nature of who we were fully, but we are gaining traction. We are gaining traction, and we can populate our particular landscape of consciousness, what I call an etheric territory. We can populate it with preferences. Werner Erhard did this thing. I think I talked about it in another call, but I want you to hear it now after I've had this whole conversation with you. You're going to have to interrupt the objectified world. Like, listen, I was listening last night. I wish I could directly talk to the newscaster, and I could not believe it. Every interview she was doing started with who's to blame. Like there's this thing to blame. It's so without symmetry, proportion, balance, harmony, and beauty. And there's someone to give credit to. That's so an example of how we objectified everything. And thank you, Sylvie. Made me cry. We've so objectified something that we've made hate wrong. We've made anger wrong. We've made violence wrong. Well, of course, there's an element of it's wrong, but we forget that we're in a primordial kingdom that is not, we can't give it a shot and have it be dormant. We can't give it a shot and have it suddenly be neutral. It's a chaotic, crazy. It's always about bringing imbalance into balance. It's always about a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And all words can be used on behalf of life. All words. It's the fact that we've objectified them and we've locked them into a limited system that makes our lives be like ping pong, a ball between ping pong paddles. And it's not life. It's not life. So I decided today, because talking to Anne today, I get to build my preference capacity. I got to realize a couple of things, like I remembered Cora yelling at me about Don't I Dare Die. And I remember Lily just being very clear, she doesn't want me to cross over. She wants to cross over here. She loves it here. She wanted to come to New Mexico with me. And so she hangs out with me from time to time. And then I understand that Oracle Girl has 2 recordings. Maybe we can post them here also. About somebody write what it is. I know some of you watch her. And I get enough juice from hearing about her. She's adorable. She reminds me of somebody I know, actually, in my younger years. And but the beauty is that there is no death anymore. There's only, as she says, dropping the body. But I don't want to drop my body right now. And I don't. And I'm clear about that. And I will not go down well if I do. And that's the truth. And yet you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to accept death. The greatest consternation over Emer's death, besides the fact she was dying and no one wanted her to, was everybody was so upset she didn't recognize she was dying. I think that's great. She didn't want to think about dying. She didn't want to think about she was dying. As if there's some great meaning in thinking that you have to give up life here. You don't have to give up life here. And I know this for certain, because I've had 19 death experiences in my life. And by the way, you all were still present when I was not. And when I had left my physical body. So I want us to take this time, this transitional time we're in, And I have several preferences that I'd like to bring up. Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, that's right. And into the death space. Thank you. That's exactly accurate. Well, I think we're in that. As a psychic and a mystic and a seer, I think that's why I'm boiling around in this thing, and why it's so consuming, and how precious it is that my historic personality gets to be cared for, or what she calls the slave self gets to have people around that comfort me and love me during this transitional time. And it isn't a transitional time of necessarily dropping the body. It's a transitional time of working something through so that my preference becomes choice, and that I have the capacity to choose, and that my choice is based on my capacity for will, and that my will can be done because it's in alignment. It's in alignment, and it's in the truth of the greater nature of what I am. It isn't like a personality issue here. I will die with great enthusiasm when it's my time. I'm very clear about that, because my greatest love is my unity with all life and with creation, and knowing that I never die. And I know that for sure. I was born with memories. I'm one of those people that never closed off. The mind never closed off. So that's the conversation I wanted to enter into the space today. And I want chompers. Do you know what chompers are? I want you something for you to chomp on. I want chompers. I think it's a new word. We just invented chompers. I think we should invent chompers. I think chompers would be great for our little crazy stuck in separation based thinking mind to chew on, so it stops being a ping pong ball between two ping pong paddles. Is it this or is it this? Is it truth or is it lie? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it good? Is it bad? Who's to blame? Who has the credit? Can't you feel the exhaustion of that? But right in the center, in the meta point, is this beautiful word called preference. Yeah, it might be wrong, might be right, I don't know, but I have a preference over what I hold to be real, over what I hold to be true, over what matters to me. I have complete say, and so do you. And we've got to untangle ourselves from this world of only evidence. You're only right if it shows up in evidence. Bullshit, pardon my English. If I put this on YouTube, it might not upload with that statement. We'll see how well I do. But it's not true. It is true we don't always have choice. It is true that is not a sin. It is true it is a weakness, but it is not a weakness of our personality, of our being. It's a weakness of the times we were born into. It's something to be developed, the capacity for will, the capacity of choice. I'm enthusiastic about it, but I do not want you to be on your case or hurting yourself with your own thinking because you're weak in a certain area that all of us are weak in. All of us. And it's time to develop it. No one should die before their time. I'm clear about that. I'm clear that we are in an evolutionary moment. And it's very exciting, and yet it's very challenging, because all the subconscious debris that we never let have a place is surfacing, and we got to give it a place. You know, I give a lion I shouldn't say a lion, because I actually have been in a cage with a lion. I did fine. Let's see what. You know, I can give a tsunami a place, but I don't have to be where it is. You can give everything. It's just so important. I know it makes you crazy at some level, because our mental mind is an either or mind. I am aware of that. But we don't live in an either or reality. Our planet is a dual-based planet. It's not an either or, it's a both and. And the only thing you have available to you that is your magic, if you have a preference over what lives in your loka, lives in where you're standing, not in evidence, because you can be living in a trash dump. My original name, Dion, which couldn't be pronounced in Tennessee, so it became Diane, which, ugh, and I couldn't tolerate resonantly. But I came from the movie with Jimmy Stewart called Seventh Heaven. I mean, how perfect was that? And it was basically a movie about a man who cleaned the sewers of London and lived on the rooftops of London. And there was a waif, her name was Dion, and she had tried to kill herself, and he took her in, prevented her from killing herself, and took her in. And then he taught her about both and, taught her about there's both a sewer and there's the rooftops. And that's where my name came from. Shocking, isn't it? I think it's shocking. And I don't know how many of you have seen Soul yet, but there's this little creature in Soul. And that little creature could have been the same as the waif in the black and white Jimmy Stewart movie, Seventh Heaven, called Dion. And so that's where I started. That's where my naming came from. And you should probably watch Soul about 100 times because it's also this conversation. That movie is about preference that became choice. That movie, that beautiful animated movie, is about preference that became choice. Do not measure yourself by what you are presently incapable of. Let me say it again. Do not measure yourself by what you are presently incapable of. Do not measure yourself by knowing the level of strength, stamina, capacity you are to have for something, and you're not quite there yet. And then gather your guardian angel around you. Its name is preference. Gather your guardian angel around you, the guardian of your mind, the guardian of your emotions, the guardian of your physical world that may not yet physically manifest what you wish it manifested. Hold tight to preference and build your strength, stamina, capacity to say it so. To say, I have the right to prefer something over something else, even if I have, in the present moment of time, no choice. Thank you. Thank you for your presence. It's just, when Jackie suggested I do this, I was so averse to it. I cannot even tell you how averse to it I was. And you feed my soul. It's like my recording on my phone. You know, that beautiful piece of music I first heard from when Saima sang it so long ago, back in 2008. It's just it's a beautiful thing. And I think today, in the sacred space for Resting Courage, I'll just, in my own limited voice, I would like to sing it. And all of you are muted, so you can sing it too. How could anyone ever tell us we are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell us we are less than whole? Why did no one seem to mention that our living is a miracle? And I am deeply blessed by your soul. I love you. Keep preference alive, okay? Till next time.